Bob McCown. It's okay. You got 5 minutes. A teeny tiny little podcast that absorbs almost no part of your day whatsoever. You can almost do it while you're in the shower. Mind you, I don't know how long it takes you to shower. When we come back, Chad from Prince Edward County will join me, and we'll chat for 5 minutes after this. Stoney Ridge Estate Winery presents another extraordinary wine in conjunction with the tragically hip. Flamenco, a luxurious rosé. Perfect for summertime, perfect anytime. Flamenco, available now at the LCBO. Show's called Okay, You Got 5 Minutes. I'm Bob McCown. I'm in Toronto and in Prince Edward County in Ontario. It's Chad. Chad, fire away. What do you got?
Hey, Bob. Long-time listener, first-time Zoomer. Growing up, I was a big baseball fan. I loved baseball. First memory, sports memory, is going to Exhibition Stadium. 1989 Blue Jays I fell in love with. Big baseball fan. But I've noticed over the past few years, my interest has waned and waned. I talked to a few of my people my same age who I grew up with who are obsessed with baseball. They say the same thing. I've read a few reports that baseball and its interest in people under the age of 40 is diminishing. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's real simple and clear. It's perceived as being too slow, too pedantic. Those of us who grew up with the game, I think for the most part don't find it that way. But I do understand if you are, under the age of 30 and have grown up with the technology that exists today and is ever expanding and improving, multitasking is just part of your life. You watch something while you're listening to something else while you're doing a third thing, and the kids today do that as a regular thing. The sports that aren't fast, as I said, pedantic, baseball, and the other one that comes to mind immediately is horse racing. And part of that is because gambling is, if you want to gamble, you can gamble anywhere. But, 25 minutes between races, young people just don't know what to do with themselves during that time. We know what they do. They pick up their iPhone and they're playing a game while they're waiting for the next horse race, or they're doing it during half innings at a baseball game. Baseball really has to be uber aggressive in figuring this out. They almost have to throw out the traditional things that you and I grew up loving about baseball, at least part of it, and come up with solutions. Otherwise, they're going to lose this generation. Something else.
Do you think enough teams compete annually in baseball to win? Like for the Pittsburgh Pirates, for example, they haven't had a good team in 30 years. It seems as though there's only 5 teams annually that free agent during the draft, they're doing whatever it takes to win. And when you look at a sport like the NFL, there's maybe 1 or 2 teams that are tanking for the number 1 draft pick, but every other team goes into the season thinking that they can win the title. And I don't feel like I experienced that in baseball.
Well, and the reason you feel that way is because you've got teams that are spending $200 million and you've got teams that are spending $50 million in salary and payroll. And as long as you have that inequity, you're left with that dilemma. The Pittsburgh Pirates ownership is clearly interested in making a few bucks, and it's a business after all, so I don't blame them. And they aren't in a big enough market like New York or Los Angeles or Chicago to be able to spend the kind of money that would be necessary to have a championship caliber team and make money. And in the National Football League, essentially there's no difference between a New York team, an LA team, a Dallas team, or a Green Bay team. There are salary limitations. The cap does allow for the smaller markets to compete almost equally with the bigger markets, both economically and on the field of play. Baseball hasn't adopted that as yet. I think it's almost an inevitability. I think it almost has to come. The system they have in place, while there's punishment if you go significantly over the cap, it hasn't deterred Boston, New York, LA. They have to back off every few years and regroup. but they'll come right back and do the same thing again. So don't blame the Pittsburghs or any of the other smaller market teams. They're just trying to make a few bucks. And, you know, I believe it's true. Unless you get lucky, the Oakland A's have been lucky a few times. They are a smaller market team, one of the smallest. And they've had some good teams and had some championship runs. But most of the others have not had much of that. You might be able to get lucky at $50, $60, $70 million payroll. But are you going to get luckier if you have $120 million payroll? Like, what is the number you have to be at to really, you're never going to guarantee success, but come close to guaranteeing it. And it's a lot more than Pittsburgh can afford to spend. So I'm sympathetic to their plight. You've got about 15 seconds. You got one quick comment?
Yeah, I got one. Your favorite Blue Jay pitcher all time?
Doc Halladay. And I love Dave Stieb. I hated him as a person, but I loved him as a pitcher. Doc wasn't warm and fuzzy by any stretch of the imagination, but he wasn't a miserable son of a bitch. And Stieb was most of the time. As far as talent on the field is concerned, maybe 1 and 1A. I'd love to have those two on the same team at the same time because it's like Spawn and Sane in 2 days of rain. Those guys are both really, really good. Hey, I got to get out of here. Chad, thanks, pal. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy the rest of the summer, and maybe we'll see you again, okay? Thank you, pal. We'll come back with another show tomorrow on, okay, you got 5 minutes.
Today's the day. You can call me names, point fingers, tell me exactly what an a-hole I actually am.
Hey, McCowan here. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can watch previous episodes of Okay, You Got 5 Minutes.